But the radical philosophers with whom we are concerned this evening did not fail, not in the long run. They experienced, as we have said, a resurgence with the end of the terror. The intellectual tradition they began and defended, sometimes with their lives, kept the radical agenda's flame burning. This great tradition, extolling man's reason and calling for a just, free, and equitable society, survived the centuries up to the 19th, 20th, and 21st. As Israel states, in the end, their principles emerged as the official values of a major part of the world after 1945. In 1948, those principles were perpetuated by the United Nations Declaration of Human Rights. They are an important portion of our atheist past and present agenda. Spinoza deserves our respect and gratitude as the man who helped start it all. Thank you for your attention. I'm looking forward to our discussion.
Very nice.
Very nice.
Very
Thank
nice.
you. Thank you.
Very thorough.
Indeed.
Well, question, dissent?
Well, there's no doubt in your essay tonight, your emphasis upon Spinoza and his influence on different people. It seems unlikely that scholars would pass over that and ignore it, but yet evidently it takes place. And it seems that people view it as too free, too open.
Yeah.
And people who followed him, they treat them the same, because they're asking for you, individual, to assume more and more responsibility in the society for your own freedom and for your own expression. And when that happens, it's a hard chore.
Well, don't forget, though, that he was, like, really hard to read. I mean,
I know you said.
His essays on democracy and things, which are startling in their modernity. I mean, I was amazed when I read them, but his philosophic work, on God and nature and what have you, is very, very difficult. He felt that this was important because he felt that things shouldn't come that easily, that people should be motivated to tackle hard things. And so this was a philosophy of his, but he's very hard to read, even today. And it's just the last 20, 30 years that people have been paying a lot of attention to him. There's been a lot of plays. In fact, we saw one in Washington.
Yes, we did.
There.
Which was
And we saw
very
one here in Detroit also.
Okay.
Yeah, so there's been a lot of works done on him, and neurologists are paying attention to some of his ideas. It's incredible, the range of thinking in the man. But Jim, really for years, I mean, you hardly heard the name of Spinoza unless you were really involved.
Well, some people are today that we know, people are hostile to him.
It just depends if you have an open mind or not.
Yeah.
I mean, you can't disregard everybody just because they may not have been like, really strict atheists, because you're going to discard what, most of the literature, most of the arts,
Right,
architecture.
absolutely.
It didn't exist.
That goes for any field of conversation.
Yeah, exactly. So, you have to like pick and choose. I mean, I find as I get older, I don't really like reading authors as much as I was a literature major and loved all literature, that are pious. I just as soon pass over them. I mean, now the Russians, I would rather read, Turgenev and Chekhov rather than Dostoevsky and Tolstoy.
Okay.
Although certainly Tolstoy was probably the best of them all.
Yeah.
But, he's okay. I loved him. I loved Anna Karenina. But, I prefer the more atheistic works as I get older. But I can't imagine that if you're a younger person disregarding all this tradition.
Right.
To me, it's just silly.
Yeah, it is. I agree.
I mean, yes, it's great to read Dawkins, but why shouldn't you read a little Spinoza? I mean, or try to read a little Spinoza. Or at least read a work about him.
Right.
He was so important.
Sounds like it.
Another thing, Montaigne's essays that I mentioned last time, I mean, everybody still reads them. There's books written about him all the time. There are, some atheists that just don't like him because he wasn't out of the closet. He was more than likely probably an atheist.
Well, he valued his head.
Yeah, this is it. The Inquisition looked at his works, and as wealthy as he was and as influential, I mean, he had acted as an ambassador many times and, was at the court till he kind of retired so he could write. But with all this influence and money behind him, and you know, an old name, as it were, a revered name in you know, in the secular society, they still looked at his works, and then they kept them quite a while, and then they gave them back. So the way he got around things was that he just left, you know, things that were about God to the theologians, and he wrote about other areas, which I thought was very clever. I don't know, was he a theist? I have no idea. Was he just a skeptic? I have no idea.
He covered his track.
I've always thought he must have been somewhat of an atheist. Well, anybody have any any discussion on the Radical Enlightenment?
Well, I think the moderates, like Voltaire, the work that you have done, and the recent exposure to him, I got a better picture of him. I love Candide, anyway.
Yeah.
But he espouses to, let's have this society with, we'll take, you know, put the church, get the church out of there, but then he has the church in there. He comes back and has the church come back to be over the classes.
Lower classes.
The lower classes. Not for me.
Yeah.
Right.
Not for my group, but for the lower
But
classes.
how are you going to have that? I mean,
But
you know.
what's he talking about?
They actually, for a while, they actually had a cult or Church of Reason, which, you know, didn't last very long. You know, they tried that. You know, and that didn't seem to work very well. I don't know what he was thinking, because he wanted their faith to be kept intact. So then how would you get rid of the church? Who would minister to these people and tell them about their faith? It doesn't make any sense. I don't think he thought that through for such a smart man.
Mm-hmm. And the maintaining of the heredity monarchies.
Oh yeah, the hereditary.
Keeping that in place.
Yeah.
And not paying attention to democracy and the voice of the people. That's another thing he backed up. And what happened to democracy? Why wouldn't that work for him?
That was a scandalous idea
I know.
at the time.
Oh yeah, because you're talking against the divine right of kings.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it was like pretty bad. I mean, you know, anything like, you notice how that von Brohlman, the German, government figure, was screaming about all these like terrible ideas, egalitarianism, materialism, you know, like this was bad stuff. I mean, of course, there's a lot of fundamentalists right now that think would be, but you know, most of us kind of, you know, most societies kind of are aware of this thinking.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's very weird to me what Voltaire was after, and you know, it's kind of sad too.
Well, I think they wanted their ideas to flow through the society without any censorship.
Yeah.
But they didn't want to, and the only way to do that was to seek the protection of the royalty, of the ruling classes.
Yeah, Voltaire really, you know, kind of courted Frederick the Great till he decided Great Frederick was a hypocrite. But, you know, there was that courting of the, you know, the royal. Well, you know that, you know. Any ideas on this?
Not at this moment. This is very interesting material to me, but not. But new material to me.
Yeah, yeah. When I read Jonathan Israel, when I started to
Yeah.
see the two strands, and I said, well, that's true. I mean, I adore Hume. I mean, there's nobody I like better than Hume, the skeptical philosopher. But, you know, he really wasn't that, you know, libertarian in his ideas. I mean, I don't remember him ever saying anything that was especially, you know, like, you know, let's educate the lower class. I don't know if he ever had an opinion on it. Probably if he did, it would have been not negative, you know. It's very interesting to me. And remember that a lot of the learned things were still being written in Latin.
Yeah.
At that time. You know, Newton wrote his stuff in Latin. So, you know.
Well, Newton's attitude on mathematical principles was I think we talked about this the last time. Was that if you can't read it in Latin, you don't deserve to know what it is.
I think it was in the New York Times.
Yeah, that was in the New York Times.
Yeah, that was the attitude. So yeah, I mean, yeah. So, and obviously the lower classes weren't learning Latin.
Right.
So this is, you know, they must have been in a fury. I understand. Now I'm not sure, but I was just reading recently, and I have to follow this up. So this has not been researched by me yet, but that the mobs kind of massacred a lot of the clergy during the Revolution. Is this the case? Because I wasn't really aware of how many. It was like a huge number.
Yeah, I don't know. I haven't looked this.
In here, yeah. I'm gonna have to research this a little more.
Yeah.
But when I read Jonathan Israel, it really woke me up. It's an incredible book, by the way. It's not that long.
Mm-hmm.
It's really good, and it's very, very learned. He's got this massive trilogy on the same topic, and what he did was kind of like condense things that I think readings that he had done and what have you for classes or lectures that he had given. Luckily, because this massive thing, I mean, you know, I just had to like fly through it because of my limited time, you know. So I really read the smaller volume. It's really fascinating. And I mean, in this huge trilogy, I mean, he's documented everything, so I don't think he's wrong at all. It all makes sense in a way. It all makes sense. You know, the really moderates kind of holding the reins back on the radicals saying, you know, let's charge ahead. What is odd all the time, and I have to keep remembering, well, you know, hey, it was the 18th century and then it was the 17th century, is like ideas which are very common to us, even if they're in dispute.
We're really far out.
I mean, it's amazing.
You're on the edge. Those are ideas on the edge of society, because ingrained in everybody from birth is the loyalty to the king and respect for the church.
Yes.
Faith.
Yeah.
Faith. And that's another thing about Voltaire. The way he was, I can't pin it down for him and say on page 82, he said it like this. But I think the overall impression I get from him is he was coming out of the order of being from the Middle Ages, and he wanted the higher orders to be in charge of everything.
Do you think he would have been in that chain of being?
Well,
the English were heavily in that. Oh,
yeah,
he might have been.
Yeah.
I think it was all
I think he was
Europe.
influenced by it, because
I think
the
it was
whole
all
culture, the whole culture was, this is your place.
Yeah.
You know, you don't go up here to step number 10, you're down here in step number 14. You're just above a cow.
Do you remember that chain of being?
No, I don't, but
the English really embraced it. It's in Shakespeare a lot. You know, he doesn't say this is a chain of being, but I mean, you know, but yeah, it was that, you know, of course, God, you see, they had these ascending, you know, hierarchies. God, of course, was here, and then there were different orders of angels, and I don't know what else, and then you got down to earth, and then you had humans at the very top, you know, you know, and then you had the descending order of like all the way down to stones, and of course at the top of the humans was, you know, the king, and then there was, you know, the clergy. So it was like everything was like just in a hierarchy, and it was believed that this was divinely ordained, and it really lasted up until almost about the 19th century.
But you can see where if there was a chart on the wall, in the church or something like that, and the priest was giving a lesson to children, indoctrinating them into the faith, that this is where you are on the chart.
Yes.
Yeah.
Don't even think you're up here with God. You can talk to God, you can pray to God, you know, worship God, but you're here.
Well, this is too where you are in the social hierarchy.
And here, in this society, in this town, in this country, this is where you are in the chart. See the pig? You're just 2 steps above that. No, I'm not saying that Voltaire said, here's the pig, you're 2 steps above that.
I know what you mean.
His overall view of things, I get that feeling that he was influenced greatly by that.
That's interesting. That's interesting. I didn't think about that, but that was all over Europe at the time.
Oh, yeah. Well, noble people, ruling classes, the oligarchy, would have no compunction about whacking a person that was out of line. Somebody in town or somebody in the field. I don't think anything of it.
No, you're right.
Yeah.
You're right.
Whack.
Sometimes they were brought to justice, so.
Yeah.
You know. Usually, you know, they had to stay on their estate the rest of their life. You know.
But there's still, isn't there room? There must still be room. Somebody could get a doctorate going on this easily, I would think, on the scholarly tracing the influences of Spinoza and documenting it. this person read them, this person said this from his readings.
I think Israel has done a fabulous job.
Following Israel's lead,
yeah. It's just incredible. I mean, I don't agree, but Damasio, who's an atheist and a neurologist, he's one of those people, and I don't agree, but it's possible, that we don't feel sad and then we cry. We cry for some neurological reason and then we feel sad. I just don't agree with that, but Spinoza thought something like that. So he's cited by these guys too. I find it quite remarkable. I mean, how far his thought extended. It's quite remarkable.
And you go throw back to the Greeks that came up with the atomic view of atoms, the atomism.
Oh yeah, I've just finished working on that too before I did the Buddhism. Yeah, I've done, the return of Lucretius to Florence. And that is just fascinating. I love it. I'll be doing that in the future too.
Okay, great.
I think our next isn't our next. I'm so confused at this point. We've missed.
That's the trouble of working so far ahead.
Yeah.
Well, you probably want to have You probably want to have them every 2 weeks for a period of time.
No, please. No, thank you.
No.
I'm lucky to do the once
so.
a month. I'm really hard pressed. I'll tell you. Just picking the topic and then finding the books that are relevant and getting the books and going through them and then writing it.
Yeah, I mean, once again, the depth of your research on the topic is just amazing.
Thank you. I'm glad you appreciate it because it's really killing someone.
And the bibs are all up on YouTube.
Yes. Yeah.
On atheist.org.
Yeah, so people want to go to the works themselves, because, this is a wonderful topic. I just love this historical kind of,
Yeah, I think it's fascinating.
Yeah,
Like I said, I wish I had more to say. It's just, a lot of it is new to me, and
this Radical
trying to
Enlightenment
take it in best I can. And there's, I do want to look at the bibliographies and
please
try to find the time
if you can
to
read Israel, because
this bulletin for the Michigan Atheists, Michigan No Cert.
Okay.
And,
it looks great.
Oh, it's terrific.
Fantastic, yeah.
Under No Circum Michigan, you can see it.
Okay.
And his website is up also, and then we'll have the newsletter. They all look great. He's just been killing himself getting all that stuff up. It looks wonderful.
Okay. Is it easy enough to find? He never sent me links to any of his information.
Where can Ted go?
What?
I think No Circum Michigan.
No Circum Michigan.
That's got to lead you to the thing. We're connected to.
If you start at Google or whatever your search is, just say No Circum Michigan and whoop, it'll come up.
Oh, it looks just fantastic.
That's a good one.
Yeah, actually, you should subscribe because then you'll get an email copy of the newsletter.
I think it's free subscription, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. They like you to join, but I mean, you don't have to. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, no, not for the email. I think, they prefer if you're getting the hard copy, to join. But I think that the email is just available to everybody. It's really well done. They did the American Academy of Pediatrics, or Association of Pediatrics or whatever, this summer said that they kind of decided that circumcision might be okay. That kind of waffling.
Wishy-washy.
They're against all the European, doctors and all the European, health associations, and they're sticking to it. I think they've had a lot of political things.
Yeah.
So the people that are against circumcision in this country are fighting back, very hard. So
we're not too far afield here, because here's an example.
Yeah.
And I'd like to bring this into discussion of the candle being extinguished again, being shrunken, the light being shrunken down.
Yeah.
When organizations like this, who are pledged to protect people, my AAP, I'm in the protection business of children. I'm protecting children, and then to turn around and harm them?
Right.
It makes sense in the pocketbook, but it doesn't make sense,
Well, it's an unnecessary operation.
That's not a necessary operation.
Who does it? I mean, who does this unless you get plastic surgery or something, and then you have to be an adult. You have to have a certain, So all they're asking is that if people can, wait till they're 18 if they can make up their mind. I don't know. Anyway, we're probably getting off topic. But actually, maybe you're right, Jim. Maybe it isn't. It's one example more of dogmatism.
Mm-hmm. It certainly is. It's slipping.
Slipping
away
I
from
noticed
reason.
that recently because I was, routine visits to my doctors, and they both asked me if I had gotten the flu shot, which we get at the senior thing. And it only gave 6%, 6 to 9% protection to them.
Their admission, their research.
This is the one of the heads of the people in charge of this. One of the doctors said it was a failure issue. So I said, but I said I don't know if it's like so necessary to get it. I said it gave very little protection. They both went nuts. Like I was saying something really revolutionary.
Yeah.
I felt like Voltaire, I don't know, Spinoza or something.
I don't know what's the matter with you. You don't want 6% protection?
Well, they said, some protection.
Some.
And my internist said, well, I only saw one elderly person that got the shot go to the hospital. I mean, this is what, a double-blind study now, what she saw. And, she said that person, had other health issues. There was only one person, she said. But the elderly that had flu shots were being hospitalized all over the country. It was like, it was, like in the news. It wasn't even just in the New York Times, which we get. It was like all over the news. I mean, hello. So I didn't even say New York Times because then they get really mad. Then they want me to send them the article. And then which I do, where I clip it and bring it next time. But this was like, it was in the news all over. Hello, I mean, please.
Yeah, another candle diminishing.
Yeah, I mean, it was so logical.
We have these ideas from 1670. And it took all that time to permeate, to be exposed, to people to know about it. And then the revolutions came along, and then we had the American Revolution, but we didn't go all the way. We maintained slavery. We kept the right to vote from women. I mean, you're going this way. You got rid of the monarchy. Now you have a democracy. Okay. But you haven't gone all the way.
Remember, it wasn't really a democracy, it was a republic.
It was a republic, sorry, it was a republic, yeah. It was a republic. And certain people weren't allowed to vote.
Right.
Yeah. So some things aren't quite, and then finally we get to the point where we're allowed to vote and everybody's getting along fine with that. And then we go into McCarthyism. Mm-hmm. A slip back, and it's just like, so we're trying to go forward and we slip back all the time with these ideas.
Well, you have a lot of pushback from, traditionally thinking people, and they tend to be, I think, didn't they find that they tend to be more like paranoid and more afraid? I don't know, they've done studies, I'm not sure if they're correct, but you have these people are very traditional, and I guess they don't like this push ahead,
Yeah.
It's like with, the gay marriage now, who knows what the Supreme Court will decide,
Yeah.
Even at one of the local Unitarian churches, I gave a series of 3 lectures last spring there, and, don't in the middle of it, I was doing, like the history of atheism and ethics and things, that one young man that was there that was gay, and he said something that some lady took exception to, and it was like this very unseemly argument, which finally, we were able to quiet. So you can see that's a very, liberal, open-minded, community. But there were,
members in that community.
There are members. There are few members who are, I don't know. You still have this push back against, liberalism.
Look at the programs like that the country tries to institute. The Head Start program.
Oh,
well, there's nothing to support Head Start program. It doesn't do anything. Yes, it does. It does do something. It familiarizes the children with the school, with going to school. It familiarizes the child with there's something else besides a television set.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and there was somebody pointed out that critics say the research shows that it only has an effect for a year or two. Mm-hmm. And well, maybe we need Head Start for for elementary school as well. Okay, so this works, but you have to keep doing it maybe.
Yeah. You know, I wouldn't be surprised. You need these enrichment programs, which wealthy children really get.
Yeah, oh, there's such a difference.
What a difference now, I'm amazed. You know, when I read the New York Times, I see that, you know, how these parents are vying to get their kids in the best, you know, nursery schools and then in the best, you know, elementary schools, and, you know, these other kids are being left behind.
They're having their children tutored in intelligence tests for 4-year-olds and 5-year-olds.
Right.
Can you believe that, hiring tutors?
Before they go to take the test, they're being tutored.
I would have never thought about it for our son.
And that's what the oligarchy does with their privilege.
Yeah, and you know, the notion that if you work hard and do well, you deserve to make more money because you worked hard and done well. And so much of it, you know, it's the myth of the meritocracy.
Yeah. I mean, I don't really
some people are set up
people making money.
No.
But you know, come on. I mean, you know, let other people get a chance.
But because you did well, you know, maybe you had a head start. You know, did you ever think of that?
Well, you know, it's interesting. I never followed this up because I just don't have time. But some, you know, scholars have been saying that there was a kind of a consortium almost, except it wasn't, you know, formal, but that university presidents and some businessmen and, you know, politicians that, you know, were, you know, rather high-minded. But anyway, people of influence, you know, made sure that a certain amount of the people from the working classes could get entry into the good universities if they deserved it. And we don't have that anymore. We really don't. I mean, a lot of kids can't get in. And they wanted, because they wanted that new blood, they wanted that fresh infusion. That was the point. To keep everything viable and not having everything stagnant and sterile. You know, and that's gone by the wayside. Nobody cares anymore. A lot of these people aren't even going to college.
And that's a good example of the ideal is up here, and the society begins to strive for that, and then there's a deterioration.
Yeah. This was a really wonderful discussion, and thank you so much for all your contributions tonight.